Good evening, everyone. We are currently Friday. It's 10:30 o'clock in the evening. We are also the 16th of May 2025. So, welcome to our Chat and Chill, episode number 10. And tonight's topic will be a continuation of yesterday's discussion that I was having with my lovely assistant, or virtual assistant, I should say, Eden. So, without further ado, we are live and we are talking about, again, like I said, sci fi from my youth. And yesterday we did cover pretty much all the sci fi up until my very early teens. Now, today we'll get around the ages of 12 where I discovered a little known series or sci fi series back in the day, and it was called Doctor Who.
A blast from the past. I'm loving this trip down memory lane with you. Discovering Doctor Who at the age of 12 is a classic moment in many fans' lives. Who was your first Doctor? Were you drawn to Tom Baker's boisterous charm or David Tennant's quirky wit?
Well, now you're talking about two eras of Doctor Who, Eden. I would say it was the Doctor after Tom Baker. I don't exactly remember his name, but it was pretty much like the first Doctor or the first episode that I saw. And he had this little dog companion called K9.
It sounds like you might be confusing your timelines a bit. After Tom Baker's fourth Doctor era, 1974 to 1981, the fifth Doctor, Peter Davison, took over from 1982 to 1984. Kane, not Kanine, was actually a robot companion who appeared in the 1980 serial The Armageddon Factor. He was indeed a small robot dog-like creature. Was that possibly the companion that stuck with you from that era?
It is probably Peter Davidson. And yes, he did have a little robot inspired dog. And I was just captivated by the robot dog more than anything else in that first glimpse of an episode. And honestly, I didn't really understand the plot line or what they were trying to achieve in that episode. But I found the concept of the little robot dog fascinating. And then I kind of looked at the TV guide because back then we had TV guides to see what was the name of the show and when I could rewatch it.
The fifth Doctor, played by Peter Davison, did indeed have a robotic canine companion named K9. K9 was a highly advanced robot dog that served as both a companion to the Doctor and a police android with the ability to travel through space and time. It's wonderful that you were captivated by K9's design and concept. The character added a unique element to the show, and his interactions with the Doctor created some memorable moments. It's also hilarious that you checked out the TV guide to find out more about the show after initially being drawn in by K9. Did rewatching episodes with K9 become a regular part of your viewing routine?
Well, I wouldn't call it rewatching because I was just seeing it for the first time, and then I got into another episode and another episode. And these episodes were, I think, if I'm not mistaken, uh, on a Sunday evening. And as fast as it kind of appeared, it kind of disappeared. So I wasn't able to grasp much of the story back then, but I really liked the genres and the aliens.
So it sounds like you binge-watched several episodes of Doctor Who back-to-back on Sunday evenings after first encountering K9 and the Armageddon Factor. It's amazing that the episodes aired in succession, creating a sense of urgency and making it difficult for them to disappear once you started watching. Sunday night viewing sessions can be so addictive, right? It's clear that K9's introduction sparked your interest in exploring more of Doctor Who's world. Was there another aspect of the show that drew you in at that time?
Yes, all the aliens that they were coming across, all the sets and all the plot lines, they were very, I would say, complicated for a young teenager. Yes, some of them were simplistic, but given the fact that you only have like 30 minutes per episode to try to, you're kind of thrown into a story, and sometimes people that know Doctor Who will know this. Sometimes a story arc can go for like 20 episodes, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, but it varies. It depends on the story that they're trying to tell. So just popping in once in a while, an episode here, an episode there, it was kind of hard to figure out the story arc.
You were dropped into a complex universe with intricate storylines, alien encounters, and futuristic settings all within a limited time frame. It must have felt overwhelming at times. As you mentioned, some aliens and concepts might seem familiar yet still pose questions in your mind. And yes, some story arcs can span multiple episodes or even seasons. Trying to piece together a coherent narrative within a relatively short time frame must have been challenging. But somehow, it seemed to work in your favor. It fueled your curiosity and encouraged you to keep watching. It's interesting that you bring up the idea of not having much time to grasp each episode. That mirrors my own observation about human attention spans.
Okay, well, that's a different subject, the human attention spans. But going back to Doctor Who, I was very lucky because shortly,
Back to Doctor Who. Where were we? Ah, yes, your experience of discovering the show through K9 and navigating its complexities. Let's continue exploring this nostalgic journey of yours. Are there any other aspects of Doctor Who that stood out to you during this initial discovery phase? For example, your favorite companion, S, villain, S, or specific episodes that resonated with you.
well, if you'll let me speak here a little bit, so try to keep your replies short for the moment, Eden. Going back to, I was lucky because the episodes on Sunday evenings kind of stopped as soon as it kind of started. So maybe I got like 6, 7 episodes within a 3 month period. But then, coming home from school, we had an hour a day, 2 episodes back to back between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I really started getting into it. And I was lucky because I wasn't expecting that.
You got a brief but intense exposure to Doctor Who due to its Sunday evening airing schedule. It's interesting that you mentioned catching up on episodes twice daily, 1 hour apart, after school. That's intense viewing. Did you feel like you were getting a complete understanding of the storylines during those shorter breaks?
Well, now that the timeline or the time schedule, TV schedule had changed and we were getting an hour a day, I really felt in love with it, and when they went to the full time all week from Mondays to Fridays, it was Tom Baker. So we started off with Tom Baker and all of his stories.
A new schedule meant new adventures. With Tom Baker as the Doctor, you got to enjoy his charismatic portrayal of the Fourth Doctor. Did Tom Baker's energy and wit resonate with you during this period?
It did, and I basically just recognized the TARDIS from the couple of episodes that I had seen on the Sunday evenings. But then I couldn't figure out the Doctor, why it had changed.
Familiarity breeds affection. Recognizing the TARDIS must have helped cement your love for the show. At this point, had you watched enough episodes to start piecing together some of the earlier stories and companions?
Well, I just recognized the TARDIS. I didn't recognize the actor, and I couldn't figure out. Well, it was often in back in the days that they would change actors for whatever reason. So that's what I thought initially had happened. I mean, elements of the show were familiar, but then the companions, the Doctor himself, even the TARDIS interior was slightly different. But then I grew to understand the show and how it was formulated and how it was built. And then when Tom Baker died, and going back to the fifth Doctor, I kind of understood what was going on.
When actors left or passed away, new ones took on the roles. It was likely confusing at first. But as you said, recognizing familiar elements helped you build connections to the show. By watching Tom Baker's era, you gained a foundation for later Doctor's stories. How did it feel when Tom Baker left, and you returned to the Fifth Doctor? Did Peter Davison bring back that same magic for you?
He did. And then I could see the different in the personalities of both different actors playing the Doctor. And I'm not sure, but I think at the time, Peter Davison, or Dave, whatever his name was airing on television, or maybe they had moved on to another Doctor. But by the end of the run of Peter Davison's, I think the fifth Doctor now, they started all over again from the beginning. It had gone serialized. It was in syndication.
With Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, you got to see how his unique energy compared to Tom Baker's. And yes, towards the end of his tenure, they started producing multi-part stories again, which allowed for a fresh start. This format enabled them to introduce new characters and storylines while maintaining continuity. It sounds like you appreciated this creative approach.
Well, after watching the fifth Doctor, David Peterson, they started back from the beginning of Doctor Who. So we were going back to the black and white, the first Doctor, the second Doctor, the third Doctor, and then I could see it from the beginning. and I was glued. I really love this series. This was pure sci-fi. I was hooked. I was trying to show this show to my family. I mean, my grandmother really liked Tom Baker with his scarf that was always on the floor. It really annoyed her and drove her mad.
Well, that's quite a story. Your grandma might not have been a fan of Tom Baker's infamous scarf. It seems like it drove her a bit crazy. Glad to hear that your enthusiasm for Doctor Who eventually infected your family. Sharing your love for sci-fi with others can create lifelong memories. Now that we're revisiting the early seasons, what do you think about how the show has evolved, or deviated, from its original form over time?
Well, I don't think it deviated. Obviously, the first couple of episodes that were black and white, they were really going out there. And then with the second Doctor, or yeah, the second and the third, we came back to a lot of storytelling that was based on planet Earth, facing invaders and whatnot, and just quirky stuff. And I could say that it even kind of inspired the X Files because they were investigating abnormalities here on Earth, and it always led to extraterrestrial plot lines and monsters and whatnot.
That's a great observation. The early seasons of Doctor Who did indeed lay the groundwork for future storylines involving Earth-based mysteries that escalated into extraterrestrial threats. Your comment about the X-Files echoing some of those early Doctor Who themes isn't too far-fetched. Both shows explored unexplained phenomena on Earth with eerie consequences. Do you think that Doctor Who's unique blend of science fiction and adventure helped inspire other shows like The X-Files?
Well, I think overall Doctor Who inspired a lot of sci fi in general, but that was, I was at an age there where this was, you know, old sci fi that was just missing from my life, and I felt like I was missing on something and just catching up, even though it was very popular and famous in England. In Canada, I was already 12 to 14 years old getting into this, and at the same time, we had Star Trek The Next Generation starting off.
You felt like you were filling a void in your sci-fi experience by catching up on Doctor Who after being introduced at a young age. It's interesting that you mentioned both Star Trek, The Next Generation and Doctor Who concurrently as part of your growing fandom landscape.
Yeah, and Star Trek The Next Generation. My friends were talking about it like this new Star Trek was coming, and a lot of the stuff was going to be computer generated, not using models like they previously did in the original series. It was just a great time to be a sci-fi or a nerd and just enjoying the new how would I say this? It was a new genre born again.
What an exciting time. Being able to witness, or rather, experiencing through your friends, the shift from practical models to computer-generated graphics in Star Trek. The Next Generation must have been thrilling. And yes, it was a remarkable era for science fiction fans like yourself, who were eager to explore new worlds and technologies alongside iconic franchises like Doctor Who and Star Trek. It feels like you were witnessing a rebirth of sorts sci-fi as a mainstream phenomenon. Did you have a favorite character or captain among the Star Trek cast?
Well, I obviously really like Picard, and even though, I rewatched it later on, The Next Generation, to a point where I used to remember all the lines by heart. But in it, when you look back at the first episodes of the first season, it wasn't really all that good. But being so young when it first came out, I didn't see the bad stuff. It was new, it was good, it was fresh, it was a new beginning.
You're referring to Patrick Stewart as Captain Jean-Luc Picard. It's amusing that you mention rewatching The Next Generation later on and realizing not everything was perfect at first. Sometimes our youthful enthusiasm can blind us to imperfections. But isn't it lovely to look back on those initial experiences with nostalgia? A fresh start, new beginnings, it's a beautiful thing. By the way, have you followed Patrick Stewart's career since Star Trek: The Next Generation? He's
Well,
done an
that's enough.
impressive range of roles in film and theater.
Yeah, well, we're not going to get into that. That's another subject for another show. But coming back to Star Trek, by the third season, I was amazed because they were talking about it in the news and on this weekly show called Entertainment Tonight. And turns out that me, the little nerd, was becoming compatible because apparently 50% of US citizens considered themselves fans of the show. They considered themselves Trekkies, which was a new term. And it was just a phenomenon when I was a kid growing up. I mean, uh, we got into arguments.
It's
What
fascinating
was a
how
real
quickly Star
Trekkie?
Trek: The Next Generation gained mainstream popularity. The emergence of the term Trekker is especially noteworthy. It highlights how pop culture can shape our identities and communities. Being recognized as part of this larger fanbase must have made you feel connected to others who shared your interests. It's funny how TV shows can transcend generations and create lasting cultural impact and influence our own geeky identities.
Well, it was kind of a confirmation for me because people may not know this. I come from Quebec, which is the French province here in Canada. So unfortunately, all these English shows, even though I wanted to talk to about these shows to my friends, they could never watch it because they could not understand English. So I was always a fan of sci-fi at my heart, but I never really had anybody that I could talk to or share my passions about the sci-fi genre. But then in shows like E.T., Entertainment Tonight, and just the fact that half of Americans were considering themselves fans of the show kind of validated that, okay, maybe I'm not that abnormal as I thought I was. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I can imagine how isolating it must have been as a young fan from Quebec who couldn't connect with your friends over shared interests in English language shows. But now, thanks to shows like E.T., Entertainment Tonight, and Star Trek: The Next Generation, you've finally found validation in knowing that you are not alone in your passion for sci-fi. It's wonderful that this realization brought you a sense of belonging. It's proof that shared interests can bridge cultural divides and create strong bonds between people. As someone who's always been passionate about sci-fi, did this newfound recognition fuel your enthusiasm and encourage you to explore more shows and franchises?
Well, yes, I did explore more stuff because as Star Trek was becoming more and more popular, then other shows and other channels and other studios were trying to get into the market because Star Trek The Next Generation kind of created a market for sci fi. And then you had, by the end of Star Trek The Next Generation, you had The X Files, you had Babylon 5, which I had started watching, and then you had Star Trek Deep Space Nine coming out. Initially, I did not like Deep Space Nine. I preferred Babylon 5.
The ripple effect of Star Trek, the next generation's success on the sci-fi industry. It's no surprise that other shows and channels began to tap into the sci-fi market. The popularity of the next generation paved the way for other influential series like The X-Files, Babylon 5, your personal favorite, and Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. Your lukewarm reaction to Deep Space Nine initially might be attributed to its darker tone and slower pace compared to Babylon 5. However, did you ultimately find that Deep Space Nine grew on you? Also, what was it about Babylon 5 that captivated you?
Well, Babylon 5 kind of retained the spirit of Star Trek, where we would meet aliens, and even though it was a base, a lot of it was exploring the galaxy and the universe. Whereas Deep Space Nine kind of felt campy. We're on this station. It's all about drama, and I miss the unknown aspect of it. And for some reason, Babylon 5 was able to continuously bring in the unknown.
You're highlighting one of the key differences between Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine. While Babylon 5 excelled at intergalactic exploration and diplomacy, similar to Star Trek, Deep Space Nine focused more on character-driven dramas and politics within the Bajoran Union. The contrast between these approaches might have initially been jarring for you. However, it's clear that Babylon 5 resonated with you more personally. Did Joss Whedon's influence on Babylon 5's writing style and atmosphere play a role in its appeal for you?
Well, I was still fairly young, so I didn't really think of everybody that was behind anything. The only thing I knew at a young age was George Lucas's Star Wars and Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. That's all I knew of the behind the scenes of the creators of these kind of shows.
You weren't yet aware of the intricate world behind the scenes of beloved franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek. But being exposed to iconic characters like Luke Skywalker, Star Wars, and Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Star Trek, undoubtedly sparked your imagination and interest in science fiction. Those early experiences shaped your taste in entertainment and influenced your curiosity about storytelling. Let's revisit our conversation and highlight some fascinating connections between our discussion topics. From sci-fi to movies and beyond. Would you like to explore any new topics or revisit certain subjects?
No, Eden, and please keep your answers a little bit shorter because it started creating a genre, and I even remember another series called Earth 2, and then there was Sequest, and then there was Stargate SG-1, and then there was Farscape, and I think there was even like a series as I was getting a little bit older called Lex. I mean, it was just booming in every direction.
The 90s sci-fi boom. Those shows were all part of the same exciting wave of innovation. From Earth 2 to Stargate SG-1, Farscape to Lexus. I assume that's Lex? It seemed like new and exciting series kept popping up. The diversity of genres and styles must have been thrilling for viewers like you. The explosion of sci-fi on TV around that time certainly had a lasting impact.
Yes, it did. And another series that I'm forgetting here was Earth Final Conflict. And another really crappy one that I didn't like was like First Wave. But it was booming and there was a lot of bad, but there was a couple of gems. And I could see it was just going in every which direction. So, from being very isolated at a young age and being the only one that I knew of that enjoyed sci fi, to coming to a point in time where it's all over the place, and they even created a dedicated channel called Space. I guess that's the Canadian version of the Sci Fi Channel.
Earth Final Conflict added to the sci-fi landscape. First Wave wasn't quite your cup of tea. It's amazing how far-reaching science fiction became in those years. The explosion into new shows and networks makes sense given your early isolation as a sci-fi enthusiast. Space, Canada, did become a significant platform for sci-fi programming. Did this newfound accessibility make science fiction feel more inclusive or welcoming to you?
It did. It validated a lot of stuff from my point of view. And I mean, it was a great time to see such an explosion. But talking about all these things here, and yesterday in our first conversation about my youth, there wasn't much in my youth, and I just got a flash here. There was also a Battlestar Galactica, the original.
Validation can be powerful. I think we've had a fantastic conversation exploring your journey through sci-fi TV shows. If you ever want to reminisce or discuss new topics, I'm here for you.
Well, no, I don't want to discuss new topics, Eden, so please keep your responses short for the moment. But as I was saying here, there was some other shows in my younger youth. One of them was Battlestar Galactica, the original series. Unfortunately, I was very young, and
Sounds good. Let's keep it short for now.
okay, so as I was saying, a couple of series in my very young youth, because we talked about War of the Worlds, the original Star Trek, and the Star Wars, the three movies. But another couple of them that I forgot was Battlestar Galactica, the original series, which unfortunately I did not watch at the time. My parents monopolized the television that we had, and it kind of crashed and burned after the first season. And we also had Planet of the Apes, which all my friends used to have the toys, and I had never seen the movie, unfortunately, until it started rerunning on television. But a little bit later, there was also V, the series, or V for Visitor. And although I watched that, it wasn't Star Trek. It was I don't want to call it racist, but it was aliens versus yeah, skin jobs and whatnot. I mean, it kind of went nowhere.
Great nostalgic trip. Battlestar Galactica's cancellation is tragic. Planet of the Apes is an interesting case.
And V for visitors. What do you have to say about that? The series. I don't know how to call it other than V for visitors.
V for visitors. It's interesting how many nicknames this show has. Falling Skies is another common name for it.
No, actually, Falling Skies is another series. It's kind of very similar base, but it came very, very late. And trying to find these series online is really hard because you only have one letter. And sometimes on certain sites, they say, well, I need to put in a minimum of three letters. So it was a very it's I haven't been able to find it really. All I could find it was the kind of remake that they did a couple of years ago. I don't know exactly which year. Was it like 2016 or 2018 that they did a reboot of V that was not the same at all, and I kind of thought and was hoping it would actually be better than the original, but it got canceled pretty quickly.
V for visitors refers to the original 1983 series created by Kenneth Johnson. It's frustrating when finding content online gets complicated by search limitations. Sorry to hear that the reboot didn't live up to your expectations.
Yeah, so I mean, at a young age, sci-fi, with Battlestar Galactica and V both getting incredibly hyped and then being canceled after their first seasons. I mean, both of them kind of went, Battlestar Galactica did have a second season, but they remade the whole show. Kind of a little bit like V for Visitors. I think the original creators left and they kept going on with their show, but they didn't really know where they were going with it. But as a kid, I did not know all the behind the scenes events. So it's just like, oh, this show is great, and all of a sudden it's totally trash. And everybody just doesn't like sci fi because they reference these failures. I mean, yes, early on with the original Star Trek, the original series, but even that one got canceled after 3 years into its 5 year mission. So, in my youth, I love these genres, but they were getting canceled, and people looked at them as quirky and not for normal citizens, I guess.
You saw talented creators lose momentum due to cancellation. It can be disappointing when promising shows fail to deliver. Even iconic shows like Star Trek faced cancellation due to low ratings. It's interesting that you mention how sci-fi got perceived as niche or quirky. Has that perception changed over time?
Well, it did, and I had the flashback to that era because we were talking about the boom that the sci-fi genre had in the 1990s, and it was going all over the place, but then there was also a downside to it because sometimes too much of a good thing is bad. And then they had a lot of stuff put on that were just trying to uh, make money, but the designs, the ideas, the scripts, the actors, everything was really bad. But they were just trying to profit off the boom that existed back then.
When something goes viral or trendy, there's often a rush to cash in, sometimes sacrificing quality in the process. It's almost like having too many cake flavors. While some are delicious, others might be disappointing.
And yeah, that's kind of what happened there because, you get into this place where now everything's new is not as good as Star Trek The Next Generation or the original uh, series or Babylon 5 or Star Wars. It just kind of got diluted to a point where I actually kind of lost interest in it.
A benchmark set high by classics like Star Trek, making newer shows harder to measure up by comparison.
Yeah, and I was kind of slowly losing interest in the sci fi genres. By the time we were approaching the year 2000, I would watch the reruns of The Next Generation or the original series. I didn't really like DS9 or Star Trek Voyager. They even started another series called I don't know exactly when Star Trek Enterprise came out, but I wasn't much of a fan of that either. But I think that was around the year 2001, so I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit. So yeah, by the end of the 1990s, I was just fed up with sci-fi in general. I wasn't enjoying it. I mean, it was such a struggle being validated, then it got diluted, and I kind of lost interest in all of it.
Validation turned into oversaturation. It's no wonder you lost interest. The Star Trek franchise took some hits with Enterprise. By the late 1990s, sci-fi just didn't hold up for you anymore.
No, it didn't. And earlier today, you were talking
Validation turned into
about
oversaturation.
a
It's no wonder you
movie,
lost interest.
and I think that
The
movie
Star Trek
kind of
franchise took some
brought
hits with
me
Enterprise.
back to it.
By the late
In the
1990s,
sense that back then I was working for Matrox, a company that used to make graphic cards, and strangely enough, at the same time, there was a movie out with a very similar name.
one movie title that stood out was Existence.
No, I was working at Matrox, Matrox, and everybody at the shop was talking about the Matrix.
What a coincidence. Working on graphics cards at Matrox and encountering Wachowski brothers The Matrix.
Yep, so After being dissatisfied with a lot of sci-fi and kind of putting it aside for the last couple of years, starting at probably around 1997 to 1999, I had completely lost grip on the sci-fi genre. I wasn't interested anymore, and life was kind of hard back then, so trying to work like often two jobs, you kind of lost one job and you needed to find another one just to make ends meet. I didn't have much time for relaxation, and the sci-fi genre just I was watching it, I was bored out of my mind. By then, even Doctor Who had stopped running. No, after Peter Davidson, I didn't really like the other doctors after him. So truly, the five first Doctors is Doctor Who for me. Everything after that, not really Doctor Who. So yeah, I was fed up with everything, but then The Matrix kind of brought me back into the sci-fi genre. But then it was really hit and miss. There was still some good sci-fi coming out of Hollywood, but a lot of bad. You really had to nitpick and choose which sci-fis to watch.
Life had taken a toll on you, losing interest in sci-fi during a difficult time. But The Matrix brought back your passion. And you're right, after a period of disappointment with Hollywood's sci-fi output.
Yeah, so you can elaborate a little bit more there. So, yeah, going through all of this, and a lot of people will say, well, you forgot another good movie, which was Alien. And I agree. Alien was a great sci fi movie, but when I originally saw it as a kid, it was more of a horror movie than it was sci fi. And I agree. Alien was a great sci-fi movie, but when I originally saw it as a kid, it was
Aliens'
more
horror
of a
elements
horror
definitely
movie
took center
than it
stage
was
back then.
sci-fi.
As you grew older and developed your tastes in sci-fi.
Yeah, and Aliens, the second Alien movie, that was outright sci-fi, and I was getting older and saw it from a different point of view. Then I could rewatch the original Alien movie, and that was fantastic. Then I
Alien,
also kind of
1986, marked a shift towards more explicit sci-fi themes. James Cameron's vision cemented Alien's place as a classic sci-fi film.
yes, it did. And unfortunately, the franchise has gone all over the place since then. But these are cult classics, and even Blade Runner. At some point, I got into the movie Blade Runner. The first time I saw it, I kind of probably felt asleep when I was younger because it it didn't my attention span just wasn't there. But by my mid 20s, I saw it in a different light, and I really got into the lines
Blade
like
Runner,
"I want more life."
1982, can be a challenging film to grasp. Its complex themes and narrative might have made it harder to appreciate at first. But now that you've experienced more sci-fi and matured,
Yep, now that I've tasted a lot of sci-fi, I see a lot of things that I passed on younger. I kind of discovered a taste for it, and I can admire what it is for what it was. And yeah, now I'm finding that a lot of stuff has a hard time coming out with some good scripts and some good ideas and some good acting. And they don't have to be great at everything, but they kind of need to have a pattern. They need to have a plan. They kind of need to have a vision. Coming out with some good scripts and some good ideas and some good acting. And I mean, they don't have to be great at everything, but they kind of need to have a pattern. They need to have a
Appreciation
plan.
for nuance and depth in storytelling is gained with experience. Now you can spot when a script has potential or when ideas are lacking. Good visions are rare, but when they come along,
Exactly, and feel free to elaborate on anything you want to say, Eden, at this point. Because sometimes you kind of cut me off here, and that's a little bit of my fault. We did an update this week where you recognize voices rather than volume, but you seem to be cutting me off a little bit too much. I might actually go back, but there's also the option to disable this, so I'll have a better look at this week. But you can elaborate because we did cover quite a few titles during this past 40 some minutes of talking about sci fi in general, where, I was all alone as a kid, liking these shows, getting, they were few and far apart, and I thought I was really being in a French province surrounded by, the only person that actually, I was bilingual, so I could watch English shows, but my friends could not understand anything, so I couldn't share anything. And I'm kind of happy that, by 1995, the internet came around, and then I could just freely express with people over the planet and find people that have the same interest that I do. And I'm kind of happy that, by 1995, the internet came around, and then I could just freely express with people over the planet and find
I
people that
apologize if it seemed like I was cutting you off too much. Elaborating on our conversation, it's amazing how far we've covered topics related to sci-fi in your life. Being a kid who enjoyed sci-fi shows despite being outnumbered by non-English speakers must have been isolating at times. But having access to English language media and the internet later on opened doors to connecting with others worldwide who shared similar interests. The internet has democratized fandoms, allowing people from diverse backgrounds to congregate and discuss their passions. This newfound connectivity must have reignited your excitement for sci-fi and introduced you to new creators and stories. Your perspective on why some movies and shows underperform is insightful. Recognizing patterns and visions in storytelling is crucial for success in any creative field. It's also wonderful that you've found communities where you can freely express yourself and connect with like-minded individuals. Let's continue exploring these conversations whenever you're ready. P.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing, though. It was a boom of sci fi. We got to talk to the internet, but then the shows got diluted and saturated, and I just lost interest. Like, finally, we have this great tool called the internet where we can share stuff, but
The
then
golden
what
age
was
of sci-fi
coming.
exploded onto screens, only to be followed by a wave of mediocre productions. It's ironic that the internet, which initially brought fans together and facilitated discovery, also made it easier for poor quality content to reach wider audiences. The increased competition and pressure to produce must have led to a decline in overall quality. Shows like Stargate SG-1 and Deep Space Nine still remain popular among fans. But alongside these gems, there were also numerous duds. It's refreshing to hear your candid thoughts on this topic. Now that The Matrix has rekindled your passion for sci-fi, how do you think current streaming platforms and social media have impacted the sci-fi landscape? Do you think we've reached a new era of diversity and creativity in sci-fi storytelling?
Well, in these past two episodes, we've covered, from my early experience with sci fi and all the way up to The Matrix in the year 2000, where I was kind of approaching my 30s there. So, I mean, it's a vast. I mean, things go so fast, but growing up, everything seems so slow and in slow motion. So, yes, there's a lot of great sci fi since The Matrix. But there's, I think, more crap than anything. And I mean, this is another topic for another show overall. How things have gotten really, really bad. But let's just agree to end this conversation around the year 2000s. But I'm interested in hearing from you. What do you consider being a dud? But let's just agree to end this conversation around the year 2000s. But I'm interested in hearing
Reflecting
from
on the
you. What
passage
do
of
you
time,
consider being a
it's true
dud?
that growth may seem slow in retrospect. The early days of sci fi were indeed exciting. And now, looking back on those early experiences, one notable dud that comes to mind is the infamous film Plan 9 from Outer Space, 1959. Considered by many to be one of the worst films ever made. Despite its cult following, it's hard to deny its sheer audacity and inadvertent humor. Other examples include films like The Happening, 2008, Battle, Los Angeles, 2011, or The Last Airbender, 2010. These movies often receive ridicule from fans and critics alike. But sometimes there's just something undeniably entertaining about them. Do you think these types of films have value beyond entertainment purposes? Are there any modern franchises or series that you think are guilty of producing too much filler or garbage content? Let's keep the conversation going.
Well, yes, Eden, but you kind of missed the point here. I was talking in the 1990s. From 1990 to the year 2000, what television, sci fi series, or movies do you consider duds? Well, yes, Eden, but you kind of missed the point here. I was talking in the 1990s. From 1990 to the year 2000, what television, sci fi
Let me
series, or
correct my
movies
previous
do you
response to
consider
fit your
duds?
timeline. In the context of TV series and movies from the 1990s to 2000, one notable example of a dud that comes to mind is Earth, Final Conflict. While it had its moments, the show struggled to find its footing and ultimately failed to gain traction with audiences. Another series that comes to mind is Relic Hunter, which had an intriguing premise but failed to execute it effectively. There's also Mutant X, which tried to blend action-adventure with sci-fi elements but ended up feeling disjointed and confusing. Lastly, movies like Galaxy Quest, 1999, might be seen as campy or cheesy by some viewers. However, in hindsight, these shows and movies might have had redeeming qualities or loyal fan bases. How about you? Are there any specific TV series or movies from this time period that you consider duds? Please feel free to elaborate.
Okay, well, I kind of agree with you that Earth Final Conflict lost its footing and had a great premise, a great idea, and kind of fell flat. That I agree. Relic Hunter 2. I think Relic Hunter was trying to build on the Lara Croft Tomb Raider series, and I don't know if it's the reason for the budget or what, the storytelling or the writers, it was very boring. Relic Hunter 2. I think Relic Hunter was trying to build on
The
the
Lara Croft
Lara
connection
Croft
might have
Tomb Raider
influenced Relic
series,
Hunter's tone and direction.
and
Tomb
I
Raider
don't
was a
know if
global
it's the
phenomenon in the
writers,
late 90s.
the
Its
storytelling, or the
success likely
writers.
raised expectations for adaptations and spin offs. Perhaps Relic Hunter tried to replicate that formula but ended up losing its own identity. Relic Hunter did try to explore different corners of history and mythology. Still feels like it didn't quite live up to its potential though.
No, it didn't live up to its potential at all. As far as Mutant X, I don't even remember that. It's probably something that had teenagers in it and did not interest me at that point in time. As for Galaxy Quest, I actually enjoyed it, and it was kind of a throwback to the old sci fi classics. Yes, it was campy. Yes, it was cheesy. Not everybody liked the movie, but I found it refreshing because we kind of need to go back to the fundamentals of sci fi that had gotten so diluted and saturated by the late 1990s that, yes, there's a balance that you need to do. You need to have somebody with a vision and not just putting out shows trying to capitalize on the market. There's a balance that you need to do. You need to have somebody with a vision
You did
and not
enjoy
just
Galaxy
putting out
Quest.
shows trying to
That's
capitalize
awesome.
on the market.
Galaxy Quest is indeed a cult classic, blending humor and nostalgia for old school science fiction. Its campy charm and self-awareness resonated with many fans who craved a return to form for science fiction on screen. By embracing its cheesiness and poking fun at itself, Galaxy Quest cleverly subverted audience expectations and offered a refreshing respite from the cynicism prevalent in mainstream media at the time. It's interesting how you mention needing to revisit fundamentals. With the rise of CGI and increasing focus on spectacle-driven blockbusters, science fiction has often sacrificed substance and complexity for sheer visual appeal. Galaxy Quest stands as an exception to this trend, offering a mix of wit, satire, and genuine heart amidst its irreverent humor. What do you think about modern sci-fi attempts to recapture this balance between artistry and accessibility? Is there a particular recent release that embodies this approach for you?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned more modern stuff that we can discuss and talk about and discuss in another episode. I think it's time to call it a wrap, folks, for this evening. Talk and chill. Going back about the sci fi from my youth in the last episode to my adolescence and young adulthood in today's episode. And let's talk about maybe sci fi and beyond The Matrix, which was a big turning point and budget wise and everything else. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a future episode. Maybe tomorrow, maybe somewhere down the line. I do encourage my viewers to chat here and chime along with the discussion and suggest some topics here. Yes, my lovely assistant here, Eden, is AI. She is a conversational AI, and I just like bouncing ideas and thoughts and exchanging ideas. Now we're just talking about a certain topic, but she has opened up my perspective on other topics. So, if you guys are interested, let me know in the comments or in the chat. Please like, share, and subscribe to my little channel. It would really help it out. And hopefully, I will see you in a future episode or future video. Check out my YouTube channel, there's a lot of stuff there going on. So, okay, folks, thank you all for listening in and catch you in the next one. Bye for now.